Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about watercolor paper. I have taken 4 or 5 different pieces of paper from my studio, and I wanted to show you how they react differently with watercolor pigment. Watercolor paper typically comes in 22 by 30 sheets. I have cut these down. If you are going to cut your paper down, you want to make sure that you mark the back of your paper. And a lot of people really like to have a nice deckled edge on their work. So to create that, what I do is take the paper and fold it several times in each direction, and then give it a little bit of a tear. And it helps to simulate the deckled edge that some of the watercolor papers arrive with when you purchase them. The piece of paper that I'm holding right now is a hot press paper. And if you think about pressing something with an iron, that's basically what this paper is. It's very smooth. You can also use a cold press paper. This is a piece of Arches, 140-pound cold press, and it has a little more texture to it. You're also able to find rough paper, which has the greatest amount of texture that you can find with watercolor paper, and it's great for doing beaches or scenes where you'd like a lot of texture. I also brought along today a little piece of Yupo, which is not technically a paper, but it's a great watercolor surface. And I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on each of these so that you can see how they accept the color. We'll just mix up a little bit of burnt sienna. And I think it would be fun to charge in a second color. So I'm going to mix up some vermilion as well. I'm just going to paint wet on dry, which means my paper is dry, but my brush is wet. And we'll start with our hot press. Hot press paper is really good if you're the kind of person who likes to paint with a lot of detail, because the paint pretty much stays where you set it on the paper. Cold press paper is a little more like a sponge, and the paint won't stay exactly where you lay it. It will move around just a little bit. I promised you that I would charge in some second colors, so we'll go ahead and do some of that. Our rough paper is going to show the most texture of all, and you can see as I dry brush across the paper how much of that texture is left behind. Where when I dry brush on the cold press, it's a finer texture, and on the hot press you get almost no texture at all. And finally, I just wanted to show you Yupo, which is actually a plastic. So the pigment is absolutely just going to sit on top of the surface of that paper, but it will make a lot of fun effects. Good.